Senator Barnes's.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On that particular section where, I think it's section 4, yes, about the transfer that the mayor, the office of the mayor shall, sorry, let me go back. There, we pulled out the Title 5 GCA, Title 40 of the Mayors of Guam, where we have language for the Jotnia Park and then also for the Maritzu Pier Park, and that my motion then here, or the amendment that I'd like to proffer, and is to ask that legal counsel then actually use the same language for this particular property that Senator Munya Barnes is looking at to transfer to the mayor of Inarajan. Well, I'll read some of it. Let me read one language so then so everybody have an understanding. Like, for example, the one for Mayor of Maritzu is responsible for the Maritzu Pier Park. The authority for allowing the use of the facility and assessment of authorized fees as currently exercised by the Department of Parks and Rec shall be made a part of the granting of this responsibility in the interim until the mayor, through an AA process, formulates a new fee structure and new rules. But then the one for Jotnia, where it lists other parks.
Yeah, that's 3. How
No.
about 4? Your amendment was in section 4.
Yes, that's the one for section 4, the transfer. Then the other is the office of the mayor shall also have administrative authority of the Tagachang Beach Park and shall adopt Department of Parks and Recreation rules and regulations and fee schedule for the use of the park, any of its recreation shelters, or any activity within the premise of the park, and shall allocate a portion. So what is in essence is saying
I understand. That
Okay.
is still an amendment to section 3.
No, 4.
No,
That's section 4.
it looks like what you have in section 3. I understand, but in section 3 of the bill, it reads, there's a new section 8 to 4013.
Oh, okay.
The mayor of
yes.
Inarajan is responsible for, and it lists.
Yes, and so I see what you mean, but it's yes, it's 3 and 4, but what I want to do is to have legal counsel then in that language is, that technical, amendment is for her to determine then whether it will be then where would it be best fit, because on 3 or 4, because 3 of course is the it lists the area, the recreational area. Then 4 now is the transfer. So that's why I was saying 4, section 4, because it's the transfer of the property, and that's what I'm saying. In what I read, that I read from 5 GCA chapter 4, the same language that we use for Jotnia and Malesso, where these 2 properties were transferred to the respective mayors, that we use the same language as well for this particular property is going to be transferred to the Inarajan mayor. But what it also does, in addition to this, is that then there is also for them to be able to, because they use these facilities for whatever purposes, that they would be able to allow them to set up the rules and regulations for a fee schedule, so they'll be able then to utilize, the proceeds to renovate or repair or maintain the facility. So that's the language that I want to put in
On the WANPAT amendment,
for section 4.
Senator Addy,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thought the debate was whether the transfer was to be made to the Inarajan mayor or to the municipal planning council. I thought that was initially the debate. I have no problems about transferring it to the Inarajan mayor. Where I have a problem with Section 4 is where we then have that continuation where it says, provided that, so Section 4 says it transfers the proper administrative jurisdiction of the community center is hereby transferred to the Inarajan mayor, provided that the mayor uses the community center for civic and community purposes. And so it just kind of begs the question, provided that, so if he uses it for something else, then what? What happens? Does it then basis to take it back and give it back to who? As opposed to maybe just, saying that it be transferred to the Inarajan mayor, period, and that it is to be used for civic and community purposes, period. Now, if we want to give examples of that, the civic and community purposes includes museum, fishermen's and farmers cooperative, we can put that in, but really it seems that there's two thoughts that we want in that Section 4. It gets transferred to who? The Inarajan mayor. For what purpose? For civic and community purposes, period. We put in more language and it just kind of confuses the issue, it seems. I think maybe we should just take a recess here and let's
Call to order. Uno.
Um, 522, and we'll go back to 455. Senator Palacios, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. During the break, there was consultation between the senator from Barrigada, Senator Blas, and the individual that administers the program, the AmeriCorps program, and of course, in consultation with the office of Speaker Ben Pangilinan. This is the amendment that Senator from Barrigada is finding it acceptable. Actually, this is just an insertion on the current statute where all volunteers, it says all volunteers working on compensating any agent of the government of Guam, and then they insert on the statute, including volunteers with the Serve Guam Commission or its authorized successor. And that then will make sure that those volunteers are exempted. Now, on the current bill, it continues to talk about the judiciary and the Sur Guam Commission, or AmeriCorps, is to come up with a memorandum of understanding, memorandum of agreement as to how to pay for the FBI clearance fee. And so with this, it is my understanding that the Senator from Barrigada is satisfied with this concern. He was the one that raised that issue about the exemption of fee. And of course, this is the proposed amendment.
On the Palacios amendment, anybody wish to be heard? Any objection? No objection?
Thank
Adopted.
you, Mr. Speaker.
On the bill 455, Madam Speaker, do you wish to close? On the motion to place 455 in the voting file? No objection? Fine. 476. Senator Toniata, you're recognized on 476.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, during the break, we did further research and consultation, and we find that the defining of the term pornographic is that it's acceptable for the correct article and chapter as stated in the legislative intent. So we're satisfied with that.
Thank you very much, Senator Adams. So on 476, Chairman Palacios, do you wish to close?
Just an additional comment. When we went back to section 25.01.50, actually that defined child pornography, whereas this bill 476, it is now established a definition for pornographic or pornography, and that's the distinction. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So on the motion
to place in the voting file.
any objection to placing 476 in the voting file? No objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We've suspended 522. The next one on the agenda is, where'd she go? Senator Palacios, 482. on
Thank
back.
you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that 482 be placed on the third reading file for the purpose of discussion, and if I can just
Without objection,
speak
you're
briefly.
recognized.
Mr. Speaker, this is a more reconstruction of the format and the sentences, more so than than any substance of the bill. And I'd like to point out, for example, that, by the way, 482 proposes to make some amendments or a reformatting on electronic, or rather on internet crimes against children, also referred to as electronic enticement of a child. And of course, Public Law 29-63 actually updated Guam's law to protect children from online predators, which was enacted in April 2008. And out of this, the AG was preparing, of course, to look at this for application. And if you look at page 2, what happened here is it's 25.01.20 and the other section that follows. It is to make consistent, and if you look at page 22, line 23, and page 2, line 23, it's just reformatted this and strike out the knowingly on page 19 and put as parenthesis A, intentionally or knowingly communicates. And this language is consistent with 25, is consistent on page 4, line 3. I'm sorry, page 4, line 8, intentionally or knowingly, which is already in the bill. And it went on to, I guess, for grammatical accuracy and conformity, intentionally or knowingly communicates with a minor and so forth. So when they put this as an A and the other, the first paragraph under that section, under this three sections individually. It just says that any person using a computer, online, internet, or service, or any other device capable of electronic data storage or transmission, and then parenthesis A, then everything that falls under that, and I guess, no, that's Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, and 4, or 3. It all falls under the A. And this is again, I look at this, and that is actually what the amendment occurs, is to make it consistent in the language, intentionally or knowingly. And this is just, again, at the request of the Office of the Attorney General.
Thank you very much. Any senator wish to be heard on Bill 482? Any senator wish to be heard on Bill 482 on the main motion? See no hands. Mr. Chairman, do you wish to make a motion? On the motion to place 482 into the voting file, any objection? No objection, so ordered. Madam Speaker, are you prepared on 524? All right, we'll go back to 509, which was suspended. Madam Speaker.
Thank you again very much, Mr. Speaker. I hope I don't have to go through the whole summary in terms of what it was that had given a summary of the changes, but I think maybe a few things might help. One is that the changes that are being made here to the whole scholarship award basically will not take effect until 2013, meaning that everyone who's currently a recipient of the scholarship or awards or loans and all that will remain until they have completed their studies. This bill would then go into effect after on 2013. So therefore, everything will remain current. What the board the Board of Regents would have to do is to also come up with rules and regulations, and in which they would have to hold a series of public hearings, and then the rules and regulations will come down to this body to be heard again, and give the members an opportunity and the community an opportunity to provide additional comments. The other section that I'd like to give you some information on is when you go to this section, of course, on page 13, where it talks about, especially for medical school, where these are any schools, any foreign medical school that's actually recognized by WHO, which is the World Health Organization, which is a great thing because it means then that those medical doctors will also can work here on Guam. So that's the one extra information that I was able to get. And the other change which you had inquired about, and that was an oversight that I would like then, if everyone can turn to page 13, lines 8 and 9, which really should read that after the awards, where it says student entitled to awards, this sentence will be added on, that there are established, then underscored, sus u Torres, and then continue on professional and technical awards for graduate students. And then therefore that would establish it, because if you look on page 12, already you see on Article 3, then on line 25, sus u Torres, professional and technical awards. So then So where it says there are established on line 8 at the words, the name rather, Jesus U. Torres. Then continues professional and technical awards for graduate studies. And with the new process, and I know it's currently when they go out to ask for priorities for the community, for public sector, private sector, what are our fields in which we feel would be a priority, then we're actually doing that for every year, and the request now is to do it every 3 years. So in this particular case, as you recall, of course, that when we talk about certain professions, what do we consider to be saturated already in our community that we consider maybe other areas very similar to in education, that there's a saturation already. At one time, I remember there's a saturation of social studies teachers in the middle and the high schools, and that the department was no longer then hiring. However, because it continued to be in the listing, the university continued to allow students to go into that area and receive scholarship awards for that area, but then was fully saturated, and we were not able then to pick these individuals up. And as a result of that, this legislature changed the law to be able to allow them, that they could not be then in our public schools, then allow them to be in the private schools. And then when they were also saturated, then now the third is let's allow them to even go to the DEA and now even to the community, not necessarily in education, because we were producing more than what we needed in the community. So with that type of priority listing being solicited from the community, that hopefully that will drive then courses, programs, and awarding of scholarships to interested students. So with that, then, Mr. Speaker, that amendment that I would like to proffer.
On the WAMPAT amendment to 509. Any senator wish to be heard? I have Senator Munya Barnes and Senator Tom Atta. Anybody else? Did you wish to be?
The amendment is just for to add the Sus U Torres, to create that.
But on the main, yeah.
So no,
Okay.
can we deal with that one first, if anyone has any objections to that in particular?
On the amendment to rename it to J.U. Torres. No objection.
Okay, thank you very much.
On the main motion, Senator Munya Barnes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to stand and rise in full support of Bill 509-31 COR, and I'd like to thank the good speaker for giving me the opportunity to be her co-sponsor on this legislation. Mr. Speaker, this legislation seeks to make the system of local financial assistance more efficient, incorporating every local financial program available to our top high school graduating seniors, as well as our prospective graduate degree-seeking candidates. As you and I know, for far too long, there has been a brain drain here on Guam, and some of our best and brightest students have left home, gone to college, and have never returned or have not come home to date. With the acceptance of these award benefits, however, our best and brightest will come home to give back to our community that is affording them financial assistance to pursue their education. And I'm very optimistic that the future of our island will continue to be great as long as we continue to bring back those talented students from Guam, who are from Guam. And I really would like to take the time to thank the speaker for her work on this piece of, or diligent work on this piece of legislation. And again, I want to thank her for giving me the opportunity to be a part of that. And hopefully with the enactment of this legislation, that all our students who go off to seek the specialties and the expertise out there, that they do find it in their heart to come home with the assistance of us helping them out. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this legislation, and I ask my colleagues to please help us support this legislation, which is good for Guam. Sana Masi.
Thank you very much. Senator Tom Matta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to basically talk about three particular items here. One is, I guess it would be appropriate to just make a motion to allow the legal counsel to make technical corrections throughout the bill. For example, on page 7, on line 15, it says students entitled to merit awards, and I think what we intended there was students entitled to merit awards. Similar thing on page 8, line 24. So there's several other items throughout the bill where technical corrections are warranted. The second thing is I have a concern. I have a concern about earlier the sponsor of the bill was explaining how the journey that this bill would go. First, we pass this into public law, and then the university would develop the details of how this thing is going to work through its rules and regulations. Then it has to come back down again to the legislature, and we're going to go through it again. It could be 2 years by the time we get this thing done, and I just don't understand why, in this legislation we provide the broad parameters. They've got to attain, to be eligible, you got to have a certain grade point average in school, you got to maintain a certain grade point average after you graduate, you've got to communicate back within 6 months. Those are the broad parameters that we should be setting, and then let the university then sit down and develop the details in the form of rules and regs, but of course require that they do so by conducting public hearings to obtain input, and then to put all that together and to submit it to their Board of Regents, and then let them basically give its final approval. Otherwise, if it's going to come down here, just the administrative adjudication process from start to finish could take as long as 6 months before it finally gets down here. And so I'm not sure how we would put that in here, and it's certainly not that we want to abdicate our responsibilities, but I think we need to be a little bit more efficient about this after we've given those broad parameters. So I'm not sure where that amendment would be appropriate to put in here, but I just think that's something that we really need to consider if we want this thing to be basically effective by the next award period. The third item that I want to is I wanted to point out some concerns that I have in the bill. It's interesting that for example, the merit award for the students who are graduating from high school, to be eligible for a merit award, a student must have achieved a cumulative high school grade point average of not less than 3.0 or its equivalent at the time of graduation. Yet, when they enter college, they're given the award, they enter college, and we somehow convey that we're satisfied with mediocre performance by requiring that they just maintain a grade point average of 2.5 or its equivalent. I mean, these are supposed to be the best and the brightest from the high school, and then they come in and we kind of like, take a vacation, 2.5. So with that concern, I would like to make the amendment on page 9, line 17, wherein then it talks about, this is part of paragraph D. It says, awards granted on or subsequent to the effective date of this section shall be canceled if a recipient, 1, fails to maintain a cumulative grade point average of 2.5 or its equivalent. I would like to change that the student has to maintain at least a 3.0. He had to have a 3.0 in high school to be eligible for consideration. He should at least be able to maintain a 3.0 while he's in college. So that's my first motion, first amendment to that.
On the add amendment, any senator wish to be heard on that? Any senator wish to be heard on the add amendment, increasing the GPA from 2.5 to 3.0 to maintain your scholarship? Seeing no hands and no objection, it's ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The next concern that I have is on page 11, we talk about service credit. The requirement right now is after the individual has completed their course of studies and have gotten their degree, then they have 6 months to come back and either repay that through a service credit by working here on Guam, or they can write back to the university and say, hey, I need more time. And if you look down at line 22 on page 11, it says that the board may allow deferrals of repayment through service for the following reasons. One, the individual wants to continue his studies to obtain a graduate degree. That sounds reasonable. Two, a family or medical emergency has occurred and you know, they need to extend their stay back there to take care of this medical emergency. And there's provisions in there about, you know, the requirements for a medical exam to verify that. But I think that there's one category that we should also include in there to allow by law to grant a deferral of repayment through service, and that is for military service. So you get an individual who, through his undergraduate years, also becomes a member of, let's say, the Reserve Officer Training Corps program, and right now the minimum term of service, I believe, with the military is 2 years of active duty and 2 years of reserve time, 4 years. And I think we should encourage our young folks to go through this program because it gives them an opportunity to improve their leadership and management skills. And so I would like to make the motion then to add in paragraph B a third basis for deferral of repayment through service, and that is for military service. And in the rules and regulations, there is where then the university can say for up to 4 years, for up to 6 years, however they choose. So that's my motion, Mr. Speaker.
On the second amendment to add military service as a eligible deferment, any senator wish to be heard? On the second amendment on military service as a deferral cause, seeing as a basis for deferral. Any objection? Seeing none.
My next concern, Mr. Speaker, is on page 16, on this idea of repayment of benefits and service credit. Right now, the way the program works is that after you've completed your course of studies, then you return to Guam and you work on Guam, and for every year that you work, you'll get credited towards the repayment of the assistance that was provided. But now it reads on, starting on line 15, it says the financial assistance granted shall be repaid on a 2-to-1 basis for each year that assistance was provided through employment on Guam or in the office of Guam's delegate to the United States Congress. So let's take, for example, we get an individual who thought he wanted to become a doctor, and we pay them, we put out $35,000 a year for 4 years. And then he decides, well, I don't really want to become a doctor. I'll just go work at the delegate's office in Washington, D.C. And I just kind of have a problem with that. I don't think we send people off to go get an engineering degree or an advanced engineering degree, or become a. My motion is on page 18 to strike out the words or in the office of the Guam's delegate to the United States Congress. So repayment of the assistance is to be through service is by working here on Guam. Not in Washington, D.C., and not on, so that's my amendment.
On the third amendment to strike office of the delegate to the U.S. Congress.
And I believe that this is mentioned in several other places. So I would ask that the legal counsel, where they find that, to strike out then that phrase. I think there's a couple of
amendment
other
and
places.
the technical amendment. Any senator wish to be heard? Any senator wish to be heard? Any objection? Hearing none. You still have the floor, Senator Adams.
Mr. Speaker, last item that I have is on page 20, line 10. Again, I guess this is the new program. It's called the Access to Higher Education Financial Assistance Program. I think that's a new name for, I don't know, what's the current program. But again, it's the same thing. There is established the Access to Higher Education Financial Assistance Program. The award shall be made available to any student meeting the qualifications herein for the purpose of supplementing the cost of attending the University of Guam. To qualify for these awards, the applicants must meet the following criteria. The applicant must have a minimum of 2.5 high school grade point average. I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'm just having a difficult time grasping why is the bar being set so low. Maybe some of the other colleagues in here can help me to understand why we want to leave it at 2.5 and not raise it to 3.0. No, I'm asking for somebody to help me understand.
There's
there you go.
a motion to yield, and I see the hand of
I'm
Dr.
really
Guthers.
serious. I want to understand why.
It's very simple, Mr. Chairman, because most people are average. That's the reality. I mean, if you study the statistics and the analysis of statistics, people are average. People are average, and you want to provide opportunities for average people to excel. You send them to college, you send them to universities, and they do excel. So if you want to restrict this to those that have very high GPAs, you might be denying opportunities for people that could excel if given the right environment, the right opportunities to do so. That's why.
Thank you very much. Dr. Yamashita.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I add on to Dr. Guthertz's comments that our students are really very intelligent students. But when you look at their test scores and you look at their achievements, and we do this, we apply the statistical bell curve so that most of us will be quote-unquote average. That's just the way it works. Some of us have been trying to get away from the bell curve where you have to have certain numbers being average. But right now, that's that reality. And so the C average students, those are the ones who are really needed to be given greater opportunity so that they can realize their potential. You're going to have smaller percentages. Probably many people who are related to people in this hall are the B students and the A students. I have 2 C student sons. And it's only through getting them through different opportunities have they actually excelled. They're not students, but they're very intelligent people. So the C average, really, I agree with Dr. Guthert, is an opportunity to give more of our people the opportunity to realize their potential and to excel. And so this is from high school going into college. And so and the University of Guam is a public institution. So and there's a reason why it is. And every time people talk about a entrance exam for higher education at UOG, many of us cringe because that's not what higher ed is about at UOG and stuff. So it's stepping from our high school system, our public school system, even our private school system, where just the statistics are, that's where most of us are, our C students. Now we want you to be a little above C, go into college, and then, and then as Senator Ad, I know I'm not supposed to be saying the names, but as he was talking about later on, when you want to get graduate degrees, then you do have to have a B average because we're really investing in you. And so then you go further. But I see merit too saying these are C average students, give them the opportunity to grow and to realize their potential. The best thing to do, Mr. Speaker, would be to say that our school system would meet all intelligences. And if our school system met 7 intelligences, we wouldn't have this problem, but we don't. Our school system of today happens to believe that only reading and writing is intelligent. We don't want to pay attention to the fact that art is intelligence, that technology is intelligence, that working well with people is intelligence. We want to say only reading and writing is intelligent. And until we get away from that way of thinking, it's going to be only if you can read and write are you intelligent. Thank you.
Thank you. I see one more hand go up. Dr. Mavini.
Thank you. I agree as well with previous speakers, and I just wanted to put my my 2 cents in. Now, University of Guam is a land-grant institution, and that means that they are supposed to serve the common person, and the common person, of course, follows the bell curve. We have average students, high, low, whatnot. From what I understand, the access to higher education, even the initiative, the national initiative, is to cater to those average groups, to bring them to increase a larger pool of students coming from that group to get into college. Because generally those who do excel well have a better chance at getting the more complicated, more difficult grants and scholarships that they apply for. So this is actually trying to attract and trying to grab the number of students that are coming from the average pool to bring them up and increase and bring them up to the next ladder of education. So I agree, and I agree with the intent of access to higher education. And although we would love to see most of our students 3.0, unfortunately, that's not where we're at today, and that's why the access to higher education initiative was built to try to attract that group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Ada, those explanations assist you?
I think the explanations that were given by my erudite colleagues certainly helped me to better understand, and we'll just leave it alone.
Thank you very much.
There is one item that's still pending, which I had raised, the issue of the journey of this whole process, wherein that the university is to develop the rules and regs, to go through the administrative adjudication process, and come back down here. And I was suggesting that really it just it should be approved by the Board of Regents, and that's it. And I understand that the sponsor of the bill is developing an amendment to that effect.
Okay, I'll allow you to come back on that in the event that it doesn't come up, but I'll leave that open. I'll recognize Senator Yamashita, who wanted to speak on the main motion, and then I'll come back to you, and hopefully you would have worked it out with the sponsor on your last concern. Dr. Yamashita.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is an amendment offered to Article 3. And first let me say that I can't think of a more fitting person than the Honorable Sus Torres to name this chapter after. I remember clearly how he really was a guide and a guardian angel for the Board of Regents for many, many years, and helped the leadership there understand how to move forward as a land grant, how to move forward through the region, and how to move forward in all the partnerships with the University of Guam throughout the community. So I'm very pleased that the author of this measure has asked that we name Article 3 after Mr. Torres. Mr. Speaker, it was after a comment that you actually made the last time we were talking about this, and so I proffered an amendment, and it has been circulated, and this is for page 15, line 9. And what I did do between then and now is I did look up page 15, line 19, bless you. I did go through Title 17, and I did look at the previous or the current language for our awards. And I do understand, and I truly support and appreciate everything that the author of this measure is saying, and that is that the University of Guam Board of Regents will, every 3 years, define priorities, will go through rules and regs, and will proffer that. And I do very much agree with the previous speaker, and then that the Board of Regents should be fully responsible for this effort. Let them take care of it. They've got the rights. Let them be responsible. In reading the Title 17 and about the benefits, I wanted to, in following up what was raised earlier, offer an amendment that on line 19, page 15, and this is about benefits, the payment of tuition and fees up to $10,000 per year, except that students whose course of studies in an area leading to a Doctor of Medicine, a Doctor of Dental Medicine, Doctor of Dental Surgery, a Doctor of Clinical Psychology, or a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, DMV, shall be entitled to $20,000 for tuition and fees. And we all know $20,000 doesn't even cover that, but it helps. My amendment I'm asking for consideration is or a Doctor of Philosophy, or a Doctor of Education, or a Doctor of Jurisprudence. In reading it, I couldn't see how why that wouldn't be included. And I really think this is a value statement that's being made. I think that this whole effort is to help our local people be able to grow their talent, to be able to reach the heights of their degree area, to be able to go and study where we don't have these programs here on our island, and then for certain to come home and help the rest of us who are here. And so yes, the world of medicine is critical, but I think these other areas are just as critical. And I totally agree that, you know, the title of this section is called the Honorable Sus Torres, I don't want to mess it up, Sus U Torres Professional Technical Awards. And it would seem to me that it is really very fitting. I look forward to the deliberation on this particular amendment, but I do offer that it be placed on page 15, line 19, and then again on page 16, line 1, so that the graduate degree programs will be provided support. Then it's not a lot of money for sure. It'll cover maybe a third of the cost to go for a year, but it definitely does help. And those of us who have studied away, we certainly appreciate that kind of support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Yamashita. On the Yamashita amendment, to any senator wish to be heard? On the Yamashita amendment, any hands up? I don't see any hands up. Any objection? Madam Speaker, I see you rising.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I remembered when we had this conversation, I'm not sure how long ago, but when we had considered, remember, wanting to recruit and retain, doctors, in particular medical doctors, in areas that are so difficult to bring back to the island, because if they have jobs in the mainland, you know, they definitely would pay 3, 4, 5 times a lot more than we're able to pay them here. So one of the incentives, of course, was to the creation of that legislation, that we would pay a portion of, you know, their tuition, their loans that they've taken to come back. And in that discussion, there was an amendment for consideration of another profession as well, but it was not the extensive education time was not at the length, of course, as it is for medical doctors, doctors of dental surgery, and so forth. And based on that discussion, of course, is that when you consider the amount of money that is going to be awarded or to pay off some of those loans was just not as exorbitant as we thought it would. Now, I understand, of course, where the previous speaker is coming, the mover of the amendment, because 4 of us actually in this room had gone, and paid on our own, of course, to attain our terminal degrees. And I know, depending, of course, where you go to school would determine exactly how much that would be. 20,000 for a medical doctor just doesn't cut it. We realize that. But it's, an amount that at least would help, defray some of their costs or to bring down their loans as, they go through their schools and, more important, to come back and practice here. I do not want to diminish, of course, the value of someone working towards their PhD or EDD or what's the other one? JD. Oh no, JD's included. But I'm just thinking that, in this particular category where we're talking about, these are, I don't know, they're loans, I guess. And if it's a loan and they're going to pay, the loan back, and it would help in that respect. I don't know, I can't think. 4 of us are educators in here, and I'm just trying to think maybe they can help me out too in terms of other types of professions other than educators, other than us here, that we want to be able to provide a loan. Well, and maybe the previous, the author maybe can describe even further some other positions maybe that, we're thinking of other than educators here that pays a lot more in terms of their pursuit of a terminal degree.
But even your medical degree doesn't include OD.
Yes,
No. Besides an MD, there are those that study and they have that. No, the OD. No. There's another one. There are a couple of doctors here. I think you understand what I'm talking about. I will go off.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to withdraw my amendment. Yes, I wish to withdraw my amendments about adding the PhD, EDD, and JD. And instead, I have another amendment to offer.
Please.
Thank you. On page 15 and following, in the same section under benefits, instead of specifying the areas, I ask that we say whose courses study to be determined by the Board of Regents. To be determined for up to 3 years. I think what we want to do is make sure that up to 3 years, the list is reviewed and updated. But we don't want to say it has to be every 3 years, but we want to say it's up to 3 years, so that if something happens in year 2, then they can address it.
Okay.
So perhaps legal counsel can help with that language. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Council knows. Okay, on the Yamashita amendment, they are hearing or seeing no objection. Thank you. Then on Bill 520, what number? 509. On anybody else, I think everybody on the main motion has been recognized. Anybody else wish to be heard on 509 on the main motion? If not, you may close, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is based on our colleagues' concern in terms of setting the process in which this bill then would kick off with rules and regs. So on page 22, where lines 8 and 9 speaks to the rules and regulations that they shall promulgate rules and regulations not less than 6 months. And the reason for this, Mr. Speaker, is that there is 2 application process, the federal and the local process, and they're not at the same time. And what comes up first will be the federal, and when our students apply for the local, then they're not coincided, and our students would have to wait for the following year. Yes, I know you're frowning, but that's what I was told by UOG. So they would like to work feverishly to try to make sure that this does not take then a long time to do, because there is a timeline. This will kick in 2013, but only after the granting, after having the rules and regs written.
I thought the concern of the senator from Manila was, why would it need to come back to the legislature? Could we put a provision in there that would make it
that they don't have to come back
that
to
once approved by the Board of Regents, it's adopted?
Well, because whenever you're going to do rules and regs, according to the AAA process, is that you must go through those public hearings, and then it comes to the legislature to once again be reviewed, unless we want to change the AAA. For this one only?
On the point of information, Mr. Speaker, on the administrative rules, if the rules and regulations come back to this August body, and if it's not enacted in 45 days, then it automatically becomes law. Just want to bring it up.
Okay.
So then, in this case now then, and that's where legal counsel will need her assistance, whether this will be a notwithstanding provision, then that the university will promulgate rules and regulations without them having to come down to the legislature, and we hope that they would be, be very transparent, of course, about what it is that they're doing, other than so that the legislature won't have to come in and try to micromanage the university. So that's the amendment.
On the
first
amendment, Senator Gutherts, and then Senator Yamashita, did you wish to be heard?
Yeah,
Senator Gutherts.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to ring a little caution here. We have to be very careful on establishing too many bureaucratic requirements for the university. I know, that's why I'm saying I'm supporting the amendment, because of the accreditation issues. If you micromanage the university any further, then we may run into problems. So I think this is fine, and they should not have to come back here. Now, if we find fault with their rules and regulations, then we can, of course, contact them and say so. But we need to be very careful as to how far we go.
Thank you. On the on the WANPAT amendment, all right. Hearing no objection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The second amendment that I would like to offer, and that's on page 4, where it talks about application forms and notices. And I think that this would really help in the transparency, which is line 23, where the board shall give notice to the community. The language I really like to put in instead, and that is actually in current law, is where, and this is the language, and I'll just read what it is, and the legal counsel is preparing it, where the board shall give notice in all Guam public and private high schools, the Guam Community College, the University of Guam, in a newspaper of general circulation and the electronic media at least once before the acceptance period is to commence, and other appropriate places on the availability of all awards. Such notice shall be posted and sent by the board annually in a timely manner to permit, then continue on, interested students who shall be, and so on. And this would definitely go in line with the amendment that we had just accepted, when they do promulgate these rules and regulations, that they just, at least you see that transparency, that they're going to send the information out then to a broader group of individuals, like in our high schools, because our high school students are going to be applying for this or maybe receiving some of these awards. So I like to put that language in, and legal counsel has a copy of it. I know she's printing, so if I may, without having to give everyone a copy, it just broadens who will receive this.
On the amendment to reinstate a notice provision, any objection? Any senator wish to be heard on it? Any objection?
Yes. And the last amendment, if I may, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to put Senator Tom Ada as a co-sponsor.
Hearing no objection. On the bill 509. Any objection to placing the bill in the voting file? We have one, I think on the agenda I'm showing only one more bill. All right, let's see if I have this correct. We still have to finish 522. We have to discuss 524, and we still have to go back to 375. Am I missing anything? I'm 395. Is that it? Anybody else's bill still sitting out there? We're going to break at 4. But I need, 22, Madam Speaker, you have an amendment?
Yes, thank you again very much, Mr. Speaker. What we're going to do here that's recommended, of course, by legal counsel is that we're going to delete Chapter 4 and continue on after Section 3.
Section 4.
Section 4, I'm sorry. And where Section 3 is to continue with this language, that the office of the mayor shall adopt the Department of Parks and Rules rules and regs and the fee schedule for the use of the park, any of its recreational shelters, or any activity within the premises of the park, and shall allocate a portion of the proceeds which shall be deposited subject to the provisions of Section 40135 of this chapter received for such use for the maintenance and upkeep of the Inner Rahan Community Center. Yeah, because they have rules and regs already for all that we did for the all the other parks that they returned. You know, parks, or it says, or any activity within the premises of, you know, the park, and shall allocate a portion of it. Legal counsel, are you looking at it? Huh? The rules and regs they have are the fees for the use of any of their facilities. Okay, wait, legal counsel is approaching.
All right.
Thank you again. The language will be the office of the mayor shall adopt the Department of Parks and Regulation rules and regs and the fee schedule for the use of the Inner Rahan Community Center, any of its recreation shelters, or any activity within the premise of the Inner Rahan Community Center, and shall allocate portions of the proceeds which shall be deposited subject to this chapter for the maintenance and upkeep of the Inner Rahan Community Center. Well, can legal counsel then make the proper language since they've provided the amendment? But the gist of this is that Parks and Recs have already adopted rules and regulations for the use of any of the community centers or recreational areas, and since those have been adopted and the prices have been set, the fees have been set, that this is saying that they will then adopt those rules for their center, and that a portion of those proceeds will continue to go back for the maintenance and upkeep of that center.
Okay.
So
I
maybe it
just
should
thought
be
that
written.
your initial concern was whether or not it was Chamorro Land Trust that was being transferred.
Oh,
And so you wanted to address it and say from Parks and Recreation.
You're right, and that's
to-
why it is, because it's under Parks and Recreation, and they have already established the rules and regulations and a fee schedule for
But
that.
that has nothing to do with the transfer.
Yes, I know, but what it is that, okay, well, because you have here on, okay. Okay, so, Therese. Yeah.
Senator Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, as I could I see a copy of the amendment is that the office of the mayor shall adopt the Department of Parks and Rec rules and regulations, and the fee schedule. You know, something is crisscrossing here because we're transferring it to the Inarajan mayor, but then the Inarajan mayor has to operate it according to DPR's rules and regs. Might as well just make it a DPR facility. I thought the idea here was that that community center was to be given over to the Inarajan mayor and let the Inarajan mayor, you know, basically govern the use of that facility through the council.
We're on Bill 522. Madam Speaker, you have a couple of amendments on
Okay,
522.
start one more time, and whatever was set, erase. So so we're on page 2. So section 3 is there. Section 4 is to add the word right after transfer. Administrative jurisdiction over the Inaran Community Center is hereby transferred from the Department of Parks and Recreation to the Inarahan mayor. And now this is where then put a period. So it gives and then to give the Inarahan mayor and the community greater flexibility is that, and then I wanted to add, well, you want to do that one first? Okay, do that motion first.
All right, on the motion to add from Department of Parks and Recreation, any objection?
To, yeah, the Inarahan mayor.
Your second amendment.
And the second amendment is that because, and I realize that the facility right now is not in the best condition. As a matter of fact, you can't even use the facility. But there are other recreational facilities that has been already been adjudicated through the AAA process for all parks and recreational areas. And what I was trying to do here is that because there's already an established rules and regulation, an established fee schedule, it is available to the mayor to use so that he would not have, or she, the new mayor, would not have to go through the whole AAA process. It's available there to be used, to be adopted, to follow. And if she chooses not to, then of course every mayor may not want to charge, certain individuals in the community to use. But should someone outside of the community that may want to use any one of the facilities there, it's already adopted in the rules and regs by Parks and Recreation. That's what this amendment actually will do, is saying that the office of the mayor shall adopt the Department of Parks and Recreation rules and regulations and the fee schedule for the use of the Enron Community Center, any of its recreational shelters, or any activity within the premises of this center, and shall allocate a portion of the proceeds, which shall be deposited, of course, for the use of the maintenance and upkeep of the Inarahan Community Center. That's what that is, the second amendment that I would like to proffer, so that then it shortens everything. So that it's there, it's in place to be used if the mayor wants to use it, and if not, then they don't have to, rather than having to go through the whole AAA process to develop a fee schedule.
On the second amendment to section 4 on the transfer of property. Anyone wish to be heard on it?
So,
Any objection to the amendment?
One second. One of our colleagues had indicated that maybe rather than shall, it's just make it may. I mean, whatever the pleasure of the body is, Mr. Speaker.
All right, I'll exercise from here non-germane for the transfer provision. It's gone. On 522, do you wish to close or just 522 on the motion to place 522 in the voting file? We have one item left on the agenda, 524. It's not, are you ready, Madam Speaker? Or can we do this in December? All right. What time on Monday are we going to vote?
Second session, Senator Frank Blas Jr., you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, now the standing House will go back to motions, please.
Without any objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Without notwithstanding, the House would like to move Bill 409 as amended from the third reading back up to the second reading.
On that motion, without any objection, so ordered.
Thank you,
We
Madam
are in
Speaker.
the second reading file.
Madam Speaker, relative to Bill 409, I'd like to move to the third reading, but before I'd like to be able to make an amendment to.
May proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On page 2, line 23 is remove the words Partial Abortion Act of 2008 as amended and change that out to say Section 3120 of 9 GCA
Section,
as abortion as defined in Section 31.20.
31.20.
Title 17.
Oh, so 9 GCA,
Title 17.
Title 17, Section 31.20.
Yes.
On the amendment, hearing no objections, so ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With that, Madam Speaker, I move Bill 409 back to the third reading.
Okay, so on the motion then to send a Bill 409-31 to the third reading file. without
As
any-
amended.
As amended to the third reading file, so ordered.
Thank you.
And for the listening audience, because I understand that people are saying that because it goes down to the third reading, that something else would happen to the bill after, on the date of voting, it goes down to the voting file. So we will recess and allow the clerks and legal counsel to engross the bills on Monday at 2 p.m. Please be here for voting.
Now, what happens Tuesday? We don't have a session?
So if we adjourn, if we so adjourn, then yes, we'll. Okay, so we are on recess until Monday afternoon at 2 p.m.